Okay, so that's what Ottawa is dealing with. Let's turn to the other side of this deal in Alberta. CBC's Aaron Collins is in Calgary. And Aaron, the UCP, the provincial government's party, has its annual convention starting tomorrow. Lots of party members there are going to be looking at this deal. So how is this playing among Danielle Smith's base?
Yeah, Ian, I don't think it's any coincidence that this announcement happened the day before that annual general meeting is set to get underway. Danielle Smith gets to walk into that AGM with her United Conservative Party members and get on stage and boast about this. And before we talk a little bit about how the folks in that room might respond, I think in general, voters who voted UCP and many people in Alberta where pipelines are seen as a good thing will be generally positive, view this as a generally positive deal, one that moves the possibility of another bitumen pipeline to Tidewater forward. That's sort of probably the general broader consensus of this deal. But when you get in the room this weekend, that AGM with the hardcore paying members of the United Conservative Party, it could be a very different scene. These people that are, really the grassroots of the United Conservative Party have a very different view. They are very skeptical and not trusting of anything to do with Ottawa. These are the folks in some cases that were behind the separatist sentiments that have bubbled up inside of Alberta that you heard David mentioning when you were speaking to him. It's a real thing, and it's certainly going to be a real thing in that room this weekend. I picked up the phone and called one of those members today, Tim Hoven, who's a rancher around Red Deer area, and asked him what he thought of this deal and what he thought, how he thought it would be received at that AGM where he will be going this weekend. Have a listen to what Tim had to say.
This is a well-planned political theater to make Danielle look really strong in front of all the members who were there. And it's going to come down to how many people actually look at the document, how many people read between the lines. Is this an attempt to squash the independence movement right at its infancy? And is that one of the things that made the federal government inclined to give up on 7 of the 9 policies that Danielle was opposed to?
So you heard in that answer there, Ian, a reference to that independence movement. Mr. Hoven is in favor of an independent Alberta, and many of the folks that are going to be at that AGM are too. And we'll see if the premier of this province is able to convince them that this MOU, this change in tone in the relationship between Alberta and Ottawa is enough to change their mind on that.
So what has Premier Danielle Smith's pitch been to her party?
Well, we're starting to get a sense of that, right? And not just to her party, but again, to the entire province. There seems to be a sense that there's a shift here. There's a reset. The political dynamics that have been at play between Alberta and Ottawa for as long as I've been in this chair maybe shifted a little bit today. I'm not saying it's completely different, but maybe a little bit. And I think the notion of a grand bargain between Ottawa and Edmonton is the way the premier is going to be framing this. They are going to have to give some things up, right? They're going to have to lock into those higher industrial carbon prices. They're going to have to commit to those being emission-free by 2050. There is some movement from the government here in Alberta in order to get support for that pipeline. And you can hear the beginnings of that pitch, probably what we're going to hear on stage at that AGM this weekend from the premier today. Have a listen.
Albertans from right across the political spectrum, whether they be staunch federal conservatives or liberals or new Democrats or something else, they expect me as their premier to partner with this federal government to seize this long-awaited opportunity for our province.
That opportunity the premier's talked about a lot is the potential doubling of production in Alberta's oil patch, a big goal, one with the lofty economic implications, not just for the province but for the country. And that, I think, is the pitch. There will have to be some give on the province's side if they're going to get the federal government on board to push another pipeline or 2 across the line. And we should be hearing that on stage in Edmonton this weekend, Ian.
Aaron Collins in Calgary, thank you.
You bet.